Hello everyone, how are you all doing today? Today we're going to have a deep dive into the world of magic in Warhammer 2, and we're going to start with fire magic, and we're going to have a discussion if, when and how you should be using fire magic, and above all, is it worth using? So, that said, let's get right into it. First things first, fire magic is available for the Bright Wizard in the Empire. You can use it with the Warriors of Chaos, where you have the Chaos Sorcerer Lord, the Chaos Sorcerer, both of Lore of Fire, of course, and of course you have Archeon, the Ever-Chosen, who's able to use it. With regards to Norskins, you have the Shaman Sorcerer of Fire and the Femur Balefiend. Lizardman, Slan Mage Priest is the way to go. High Elves have two options, which is the Mage of Fire and Teclis, which you can use. Keep in mind there is also the Archmage of Fire, which you can hire as a Lord as well. With the Dark Elves, you have the Supreme Sorcerers of Fire and Sorcerers of Fire, which is essentially the Lord version and the Hero version, same as the Elves. Those are the ones that can use fire magic. However, a number of others can have a bound spell, such as Teclis and a various amounts of other units across the campaign. So some of these guys would be also true items, such as the Ruby Ring of Ruin or Fire Ring of Tori, which you can have a fireball cast spell. Fireball is one of the spells you can get, the others being the Burning Head, Piercing Bolts of Burning, Flamestorm, Cascading Fire Cloak, and Flame Sword of Ruin. The Fireball, Burning Head, Piercing Bolts of Burning, Flamestorm, and I am going to kill my cat because he has interrupted this recording for the 10th time, are your damage dealing spells, and they are really fun to use. Fire magic is one of the most powerful magics wins in lores in the campaign, in my opinion, and opinion of many others, as it does a tremendous amount of damage. The downside of fire magic is that it does not tend to do well against armor. It is one of its weaknesses, but then it kind of makes up for it with overcasted spells and with how cheap and how long their spells last. Cascading Cloak of Fire and Flame Sword of Ruin are two spells which increase your damage output and increase your defense. With regards to Cascading Cloak, it increases armor penetration of a singular unit and gives them some more melee defense. And Flame Sword of Ruin, it essentially makes your weapons do magic damage and fire damage and gives them a base weapon boost damage increase, which I believe is, as we can check here, for missile and melee defense, if I believe right, 25% base missile damage and 30% base weapon damage. Kindle Flame is another ability that the Fire have, which essentially, wherever there is a spell cast by a Flame Wizard, it gives a 22% weakness to fire damage map wide. This does not stack between different fire magic casters as it used to at one point, which would have made it, and in fact it was ridiculously strong because you could make practically everyone weak to fire damage. Flame Sword of Ruin does have some implications where you can use it with boosting artillery or archer fire, but overall, as well as Cascading Cloak of Fire, there's spells that you don't use. That said, let's run straight through them and then we'll see their animations and discussions. Fireball is a targeted spell. You can put 2 points into it, essentially making it being able to be overcasted at a cheaper cost, and of course it does decent damage to a singular target and it causes a knockback effect. The main issue with Fireball is that even though it has high armor piercing damage and it has a big explosion, it's really difficult to use, it's not really practical, and for 7 winds of magic you're better off using something else like the Flamestorm, which is 10 when it's fully upgraded. Why? Well, the reason why is essentially a fireball can be dodged very easily, and the AI is pretty good at dodging spells and other missiles. So it's one of those things which is nice, it's good to have, and if you have it for free, especially with the items as we discussed, use it. Otherwise, early game is good, short range is okay, long range not so much. As we discussed, Kindle Flame is something that you get a passive ability. Always put a point into it, as it's really going to help you. Cascading Fire Cloak and Flaming Sword of Ruin are not something I prioritize, as you have the option of Burning Head. When you have a Burning Head, and you can get this very early on in the campaign, you're gonna have a lovely time. Most of the early game units do not have armor, and this spell is incredibly strong. We shall see it later on in action, and you should understand what I mean. It does a single line of damage where it costs a head that is burning, it is in the name. It does a lot of damage, magical and fire damage. It is fast moving, so it's going to move quite fast, and it essentially can deal a lot of damage to units packed into a tight area. The main downside of Burning Head is that it really does not like following a straight line. It wiggles around, moves along with the terrain, and it's quite hard to predict where it's going to go apart from the first few meters in the game, inches on your or centimeters on your screen. Then you get evasion, and this is pretty much in every single magician and magic caster in the campaign. Evasion is a really strong perk and passive that people don't really think much about it, but I do want to highlight it. That extra melee defense and the 6% extra speed is going to make your magic caster survive so much longer. Then these are the reason fire magic is so strong. Flamestorm. Flamestorm upgraded costs 17 cost. Currently, if you don't overcast it, it only costs 10. Overcast it costs 17. If you don't overcast it, it costs 10. When it's fully upgraded, and it does a 27-second vortex that kills everything in its path. This is not overcasted. Overcasted, it's a 54-second vortex. It does massive amounts of damage. It essentially eviscerates everything in its path, and it does not cost that much. This is one of the spells that really changes the game. Piercing Bolts of Burning is also a good spell. It's quite expensive. It costs 9, fully upgraded and not overcasted, and we shall see again how it works in the video, but it is not as good as Flamestorm. The good side about Piercing Bolts of Burning, it's really good to use on walls. And that is the spells. Now let's jump into a map and see how they work. And with this, let's start this battle. This is a lab battle, so we have a shit ton of extra magic. And I have gotten 3 spellcasters, so we shouldn't be that much of an issue. The spells here cost a little bit different because they are not as in campaign, but essentially you have the same effect. Keep in mind, guys, that if you want to see what the spells look like and how it works, go simply on the Lore of Fire over here, or any of the other lores, and you'll see all of the animations and their costs. Now let's just go and kill some humans over here. So this is the perfect scenario for you to cast a Flamestorm. So let's cast a Flamestorm over there and we'll see how it acts. The Flamestorm is going to burn and go a Vortex spell. Now, Vortex spells have, of course, their pros and cons, and they will go in any direction they want. So you can see we killed 136, because there was a concentration of forces there, but the units kind of, it's actually doing really well. It's going in the right direction. This is why the Vortex spell is so strong, especially with regards to fire, because it lasts so long, and it can end up doing really well. With regards to Burning Head you cast it as such, but as you're gonna see, the downside of Burning Head, it does not follow a straight line that much. It starts moving around, meandering around, and the damage it does, even though it's high, is not gonna be that great. As you can see from its path, it just bends ever so gently towards the side, and that said, it goes for a very long direction. If you want to use Firebolt, you can use it, but as you can see, it's not necessarily going to be that accurate. Keep in mind the unit sizes are much larger on this, but it does do a significant amount of damage. Piercing Boards of Burning, as you can see, there you summon something in the sky eventually. Where is it? There it is. You summon the spell after a small casting period in the sky, but as you can see, the AI tends to ignore it and avoid it. The other spells, you cast them on yourself. Keep in mind, this is in the laboratory. Each of the spell is much more larger, and it's mostly for theoretical reasons, so you guys can see it better. Anyway, these are the spells and the variations of them. There are many ways of using these spells, and I hope I gave you an idea when and how to use such spells. Keep in mind that this is also up to you, and getting used how to using the spells is something that will happen over time. I highly recommend that if you have access to fire magic, and if you play one of the campaigns that have access to fire magic, you do, because it adds a lot of flavor to the campaign, and it essentially is one of the strongest spells, spell magic lores of magic that you can have, especially early on in the campaign. I think life magic is one of the other ones that's stronger, and heavens is one that comes close in terms of damage, but heavens is then restricted in other areas as well. That said, ladies and gentlemen, hope you had a good day and you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like or a comment, let me know what you think. And also in the comments, guys, tell me which lore of magic you want me to cover next, and if there is anything else you'd like me to do in covering these spells, and or how you'd like me to cover said spells. Have a nice day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye!